let's discuss a bit about the BugsZero Kata. And could you please explain what is it and what we'd like to achieve today?
So the BugsZero Kata is something I created in the wake of the movement of BugsZero. BugsZero is the idea that bugs are optional and that we can improve the system so that bugs exist less and less. And in fact, this has happened at many levels, like how we do deployment and stuff like that, and how we specify. But more specifically in the code, whenever there is a bug, it was usually quite easy to introduce it. The design didn't stop it, and so it's the idea of whenever we have a bug, we kind of not only fix the bug, but possibly also the root cause that made the bug easy or possible. That's the idea of BugsZero.
Okay, and today we have a kata that we used for other ideas, for legacy code mainly, and it's the trivia code base that we're gonna use to show how this works and how we'd like to minimize the potential bugs from this code base.
Yeah. So there are two cases. Like either we have a bug and we fix it and we see what made it possible and how can we make this type of bug either impossible or just very much less likely in the future. But then we also have like we often look at code, like in code reviews and stuff like that, and we can ask ourselves the question: will it be easy to work with this code in the future? Does it seem like difficult to introduce some features? And then we could maybe question the design up front.
So we are looking not only at code, we are looking at design, and we are thinking about potential issues that might appear with this code. And for that, I guess you need some kind of experience to understand how this works. And you need the experience in previous cases or in previous situations where you had this type of defects coming from all sorts of situations. So I guess this type of analysis is not something that a junior programmer would be able to do, right?
Well, I would say that experience is indeed very useful, but not necessary. So maybe a complete junior would have difficulties with this, but anyone with just a bit of experience already likes and dislikes code. And I think this is a very usable thing. Like code we don't like, that we can spot very quickly. So I'm not saying that every code we don't like is bug prone, of course not, but it's kind of like a good place to look for bug prone stuff. The correlation is very high, at least in my experience.
But even that can be very personal and subjective. If you say about code we like or we don't like, it still comes a bit from experience, right? But it comes also from a sense that you create while reading a lot of code, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a perfect measure, but it's a way that doesn't take much time investment because it's just there, and the correlation is in my experience very good. So what we do is whenever we see a place we don't like, okay, why don't I like this? Is there a potential problem here already? What kind of feature would be very hard to introduce in this piece of code? And if we don't find anything, then the code is good, right? If we do find something, then maybe we can think of some alternative designs to that, and see what how they perform given like a specific feature.
So in this situation, you can also do some other things. Look at defects that you previously had, or some major defects, and see how you got to that. I'm a very big I try to teach this to everyone. Say, hey, if you have a defect, search the root cause, and quite often the root cause is the architecture or the design. And of course, in very complex and complicated systems, it's difficult to navigate and understand exactly what the root cause is, but at least you can try.
Yeah. It might be difficult to find all the possible alternative solutions. Indeed, and that's where we gain from experience. But starting to think in this way is I think likely to bring experience quicker.
So in my experience, I saw that if you have a system, you don't need to blame the user. So the user in this case is the programmer. So if you have the system, you need to change the system in order that the users would make the right choices, or the choices that don't generate negative impact. And I think it's the case with BugsZero, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's a very good
so
image of that.
Never blame the user, never blame the programmer. Look, what was the design that generated that defect? And I think you'll learn a lot more and gain a lot more.
And also, if you look at every problem in this way, it's kind of much more inspiring and much more pleasant to work in this way. So it's not whenever we have a merge request, it's not like this design is bad, do this one instead, it's much better. So that's why people hate merge requests sometimes, right? But this is more like, okay, so what if we had this feature? How it would be a bit difficult, right? Can you think of some alternative designs that would perform better? That's a much more interesting problem to solve, or
and a lot more helpful to achieve the end goal of having a better system.
Yeah, the kind of I don't like this, that kind of comment disappears in a way.
Yeah.
Maybe put the page here, BugsZero Kata link. So there's a lot of documentation here, and so this is the README of the Kata, and then we have these advanced instructions here, intermediate instructions. Sorry. So here are all the existing bugs and weaknesses. Well, maybe not all, but
that we know.
Yeah. And here's also the procedure of how we want to experiment thinking, like identify a weakness in the design, which is actually what I'm giving on a plate here. So you might want to look at it in a second time.
Yeah.
And then like if we're in a merge request, or if we're pair programming, like not just say that, okay, this design is better, but state what the potential bug is before explaining how you're solving it. Because that's kind of what gives us to the way to understand why we think that one solution is better than the other.
Yeah.
On separating the problem and the solution. And sometimes sometimes you don't even code in this Kata. You can just whiteboard some solutions. Of course, you'd have to try them and see if they're actually working, but still the fact that you're just exchanging over the possibilities is very useful too.